Let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Dilanian and former federal prosecutor and Politico magazine senior writer Ankush Khardori. So, Ken, tell us more about what you're learning related to this new batch of files we might expect.
Well, what we're being told is that the Justice Department is doing this under pressure after reporting by MS Now and others about potentially missing files that should have been released, that were not released, that may have been withheld under the review process. And what the DOJ is saying is that if that happened, that was a mistake. And they're saying that, I'll just read from a statement that we got from the Justice Department. DOJ has always stated in filings with the court, letters to Congress, and public statements that with a production of this magnitude, required within an unprecedented time frame, mistakes are inevitable. And should anything be found to have been improperly tagged in the review process and is responsive to the act, the department will, of course, publish it. And again, we're told that fairly soon, within a few days, the DOJ is going to release another batch of potentially thousands of files. Whether there's going to be anything new in these files remain to be seen. But this is coming as the Justice Department is under enormous pressure, and this subpoena of Pam Bondi just underscores that pressure. This is an extraordinary rebuke of the Trump administration by people from their own party.
Walk us through what exactly this subpoena calls for.
Well, it calls for Pam Bondi to come in and testify under oath. And what's really interesting about this is that it drew the support of 5 Republicans on this committee. And so this subpoena is being issued over the objections of the chairman, Mr. Comer, who did not want this to happen. He's an ally of the Trump administration. The DOJ didn't want it to happen either. They were willing to have Pam Bondi come in and brief members, but they don't want to have a deposition under oath in a sort of adversarial process. But that's what's going to happen here. And it just puts more pressure on Pam Bondi and on the Justice Department to come clean and to explain exactly how they handled the redaction process with these files, because it's not just Democrats, it's conservative MAGA Republicans who are upset with the way this has been handled.
Ankush, there's still so much we don't know about the Epstein investigation. MS Now and other outlets have reported that the DOJ withheld interviews from a woman who accused President Trump of sexual assault, who was also tied to Epstein abuse. The president, of course, has denied any wrongdoing. And just this week, in fact, more than 40,000 files in the Epstein files are missing from the DOJ's website. The co-author of the Epstein Transparency Act, Congressman Ro Khanna, spoke about what could be missing this morning.
I'm not confident that those documents are still there in the condition that they were in the original. I mean, they could be there and they could be blacked out. So it's unclear whether they have tampered with these documents. But if they have, that is an enormous crime and a cover-up.
Ankush, if you could sit down with Bondi, what would you want to ask her?
You know, there are 2 sets of objections or concerns that people have with the Department of Justice he's handling. One is a process objection. I use the word process not to diminish it. You know, we're talking about mistaken redactions, putting up files and withdrawing them, revealing victims, cooperating witnesses, all that sorts of stuff. So I would be asking her a lot about the process by which the Justice Department went through this effort and why it was so bungled, particularly since they had quite a bit of time to get prepared last year. And frankly, they kind of brought this on themselves by bungling the whole disclosure, including Bondi's comments over the course of last year before the law passed. So I would be asking about that. You know, then there's the separate questions that people have about sort of the substantive outcome of the investigation. You know, why isn't this person or that person, or why haven't more people been charged? I am not sure she is the right person to be asking those questions, but I understand why people want to. I think, you know, I don't quite understand why this isn't on the table, but a lot of the questions I have, I would want to direct to the line prosecutors who investigated the case. Now, the Justice Department under Bondi fired one of those people, Maureen Comey, so that has complicated that matter. But I am interested in what the line prosecutors do, how they assess things, because right now we have a lot of people coming in and second-guessing them without hearing from the principals.
That's a real good point. I'm just thinking about how combative the Attorney General has been when it comes to lawmakers. There's certainly no love lost. There's really been a lot of disrespect we've witnessed when she was before the Judiciary Committee previously. What happens if Bondi just doesn't comply with this subpoena? Wouldn't it be the DOJ typically that would have to hold her accountable?
Well, first there'd have to be a vote holding her in contempt, but then yes, it would go to DOJ, and of course they would do nothing about that. Now, I hopefully, because this is behind closed doors, she'll be able to control herself. But of course, at her last public outing, her testimony, she behaved like an all-around crazy person and yelled at anyone who asked her a substantive question and insulted a whole bunch of Epstein's victims in the process. I mean, it was a whole mess. So, she has not done well. She doesn't do well in these settings. But perhaps if it's behind closed doors, she'll feel less of an urge to sort of play to the cameras and play to social media and play to Trump. We'll see.
Got to leave it there for now, guys. Ankush Khardori, Ken Dilanian, thank you both.